For I know the plans I have for you, plans for peace and not for evil. Jeremiah 29:11, that's been one of my favorite passages really since I started reading the Word of God. And this morning I was in Jeremiah, but I was in 27 and 28, and I read right up until 29:11. But see, before that, I feel like is a very important message for the times of today, when the people of Jerusalem and Israel and all the Israelites, all of God's people were taken into captivity by Nebuchadnezzar. And in Jeremiah 27, God calls Nebuchadnezzar his servant. This was an evil dictator who had conquered God's people, and God calls him his servant. Now, they were under the bonds of captivity. They were taken to Babylon, most of, the Hebrews, the Israelites, and there would be false prophets. Hananiah came along and said that the Lord had told him that the yoke of slavery was going to be broken within 2 years. But then Jeremiah said, I hope that what you say is true. But then he called out the false prophet, saying, many prophets come and speak of war, but only a true prophet will be revealed if he prophesies times of peace and it comes true. And then Hananiah, hearing this, took it was like a yoke, a wooden yoke that the Lord had told Jeremiah to put around his neck. And he took it off and broke it and said, just like that yoke around Jeremiah's neck, the yoke of slavery will be broken in the name of the Lord. Jeremiah saw this and left. But then the Lord spoke to Jeremiah and said, go back and tell Hananiah this. And he told him in front of all the people and the prophets that since you removed this wooden yoke, I will replace it with an iron yoke, basically. So it'll be an even deeper amount of subjugation and servitude because of the people believing this false prophet. And then Hananiah was basically sentenced to death, and it was a word of warning to all those people who would put faith and hope in the lies of these deceivers who were false prophets, and they said they were sent from the Lord. And as God was using the prophet Jeremiah to tell the people, to warn them not to fall for the people who promised that the Lord was going to rescue them from the bondage. The Lord said, do not escape these yokes of slavery. Do not even attempt. For if you attempt to escape, there will be pestilence. You'll die by the sword, by plague. So stay there and subject yourselves to that yoke of slavery that your disobedience puts you in. That he allowed a sociopathic dictator like Nebuchadnezzar to be used as a servant of God. And God uses that today. We see a lot of evil in the world taking over, but because people have strayed so far from God and his word and his law, he's allowed us to become enslaved to these rulers of this world. But if we're truly serving God and his kingdom and his will, we'll subject ourselves like the major prophets of old, like Daniel, who allowed himself to be a slave. And he gracefully and respectfully spoke to the king and served the king, and he opened the king's eyes. Well, he served quite a few kings, but there's been a lot of faithful servants like that who take there. I mean, Jeremiah, he was jailed. Look at the Apostle Paul. He took joy in the bondage when he was in jail. And we're to do that, to serve faithfully, rather than continuing to rebel, thinking that God is going to bring us victory. I see so many people saying, God is breaking us free. God is going to bring destruction. There's going to be a transfer of wealth. There's all these false pastors out there putting dreams in the minds of people that are tied to this world and not to truly serving God, knowing that our existence goes far beyond this lifetime. So just remember that. It's always good to go back to the Old Testament and just remember there's youth always around, and we're to do things thinking about the youth, thinking about the future. But that future is in God's kingdom when we are no longer in this world. So take a lesson from Jeremiah when he exposed the false prophets of his day on command of the Lord, and he subjected himself. He was a weeping prophet. He was one of the weeping prophets. He did not live a glorious life, but he served the Lord, and he's glorified in heaven. And when we're looking to serve and glorify the Lord, many people will be brought to faith through that willingness of us to subject ourselves to sometimes intolerable lives in submission to an unruly and unholy authoritative form of government. We're seeing that right now, but we serve a Most High God who created us, and we're saved by grace through faith. So we always serve Him, even when we're in obedience and compliance to an otherwise ungodly world governing authority. We always serve God first. Anyway, I pray this finds you well. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.